Investors are always looking for innovative growth companies that can build on something that they're doing differently over the course of decades. We saw this with Nike in the 1980s when they introduced Nike Air, those little air bubbles. That was really identifiable for the company for an extremely long period of time. One of the companies that I think has been really innovative in running is the brand just called ON. The company is On Holding, but their website is On Running, and they have become one of the most popular running shoes in the world. Now, there's a number of things that the company is doing differently. They're very clearly serving the high end of the market. They have a very high price point. They have a very high gross margin of around 60%. So phenomenal economics from an investor perspective. But they're also pushing the limits of innovation and performance. And that's really where I think the company is doing things differently. One of the things that attracted me to On Holding when I did an asymmetric investing spotlight was how the company is marketing itself differently than a lot of competitors. It is marketing the athletes that it's sponsoring are the absolute best athletes in the world, but they're not the highest paid athletes. They have chosen to go with the best female athletes in the world. So Helen Obiri is going to be an example of that. Ran the Boston Marathon in a record time earlier this year, is going to be competing in the Olympics on a brand new shoe that is made in a completely different way than anything that On has made before or anything that any other shoe company has made before. And this is where I think we can see the groundwork for potential innovation and long-term growth for On, not only on the marketing side, but also on the production side as well. So I want to highlight what this shoe is and why I think it's emblematic of how On is doing things differently than its competitors and how that will lead to financial results long term. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you the top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's get to exactly what this shoe is, because this is getting a lot of attention ahead of the Olympic marathon where you're actually going to see it in action. This is the Cloud Boom Strike LS. From On Holding. Cloud Boom is a brand that they have used before. Yes, a $330 shoe, but it's not just about the shoe. This is an incredibly unique shoe design. You can see that there's no laces, so it's going to be a form-fitting shoe. It's also much lighter than a traditional shoe because there's essentially no wasted material, and very different from previous On designs. You can see that there is a bit of that cloud technology that they're known for, but this is very different than the traditional On designs, which kind of have these little clouds or bubbles here. I know the Cloud Monster is the one that I am using right now, but they all look kind of the same on the sole. So this is very, very different. But it's not just about the sole, it's about the way that this shoe is made that is so unique. This is made using what they call light spray technology. This is essentially a sprayed on shoe. So you start with the sole here, and then the rest of it is sprayed on using a robot. And we'll show you some of the images here. This is the robot actually spraying on some of the shoes. This is in their lab. But the idea would be that they're not only going to be able to produce these vehicles using robotics like this, but also that they're going to be able to produce these more locally. In fact, they set up a miniature manufacturing facility in Paris for the Olympics. So this is something that they're demoing in person. You can actually get a pair of shoes there. And you can see that they actually just spray a pair of shoes onto this little mold here. And that mold changes depending on the size of the shoe that you're making. So like I said, very unique design, takes a lot of the hand manufacturing out of it, could potentially reduce costs long term, but also reduces those shipping costs around the world. So there's a lot of advantages from a logistics, inventory, manufacturing perspective that On is really leaning into. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Now, this isn't some sort of crazy product or idea that investors are betting on, hoping that it will pay off in the future. On is a very well-established company in the market, and you can see from these financials that the company continues to compound growth. You can see that over the past 3 years or so, total revenue is up in a compound annual growth rate of 54%. Management thinks that they can grow at around 30% over the next 3 years. Gross profit, 60% gross margins. That's what they're shooting for. That's basically what they're delivering in that 59 to 60% range. And then they're also generating net income. One of the reasons that this is so important is product companies that are making physical goods typically have a hard time making net income as they're growing because they need to spend money on operations, on sales and marketing. You're building inventory. So there's a lot of cost that goes into funding that growth. Typically that payoff is sometime in the future, but you can see that On Holding is profitable despite the fact that it's growing in excess of 50%. So all these numbers point to a phenomenal company. And if you combine that with a differentiated marketing message, like I talked about earlier, they have sponsored Zendaya. She actually did a video as well in Paris. Some of the best female runners in the world are using On shoes. And let's not forget that they're also moving into apparel as well. That was actually one of the reasons that they signed Zendaya, was she is showing off a lot of the apparel that they have. Again, very high price point, very high quality, but that's exactly what On is leaning into. They're going for the performance market, and then that performance market translates to the people who are willing to spend $300 on a pair of shoes and maybe wear them to a suburban soccer game. That's really where I'm seeing them more and more, is On is a very popular shoe among more affluent consumers. So it's not going to be something that's necessarily going to be blowing up social media because the biggest names in sports are wearing them. It's going to be more very high performance, and then that's going to translate to a more suburban buyer. I think that's really the target market for On. That's why they've been able to maintain those high price points. And this innovation that they're bringing to the market with these spray-on shoes, I think is something that could fuel them for the next decade. If this becomes an identifiable thing for them, if this becomes something where they can scale manufacturing in local markets, that will be a phenomenal win for them. It's not going to be easy, but this is the kind of differentiator that is going to get people's attention. And that's really the challenge in consumer products market, is how are you going to get people's attention? This does it. They're getting a ton of free marketing from this. I am sure when the women's marathon goes on, there are people who are going to be talking about the On shoes that Helen Obiri is wearing, and that will continue the discussion. So I think this is one of the best consumer goods companies right now. I think there's a massive opening for them as Nike kind of falls by the wayside. We saw recently that Nike's results were really weak. If On reports really strong results when they report in the next couple of weeks, I think that will be another sign that On is just taking market share, particularly in the high end of the market. One of the great things about On is you know exactly where they sit in the market. It's not like Nike where they're trying to serve everybody. They are specifically serving the high end of the market. You're going to have a very high price point, very high margins. And if you add innovation to that, that's the kind of thing I can get behind long term. So really interesting developments from On. I'm excited to see how these go. I don't know that I'm going to be buying a $300 pair of shoes. $170 was a lot to spend for my last pair of On shoes, but these could definitely be the kind of shoes that become identifiable for On long term. So let me know what you think about On stock and the innovation, the way that they're doing things a little bit differently in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.